Unraveling Fyre Festival, the economic psychology of a major scam. In April of 2017, the world witnessed what would become one of the most infamous disasters in event marketing history, the Fyre Festival. Billed as a luxurious, once-in-a-lifetime music experience on a private island in the Bahamas, the event promised paradise. Gourmet food, celebrity performances, luxury villas, and a chance for attendees to rub shoulders with A-list influencers. Instead, it became a chaos-ridden debacle marked by inadequate food, flimsy tents, no musical acts, and stranded guests. Tickets sold for tens of thousands of dollars, only for attendees to arrive at a site that looked more like a hastily erected disaster zone. The Fyre Festival quickly became synonymous with deception, fraud, and the failure of hype over substance. At the center of this catastrophe was Billy McFarland, the co-founder and CEO of the Fyre Media Company, which oversaw the festival's organization. His dramatic downfall from a promising young entrepreneur to a convicted fraudster serving a 6-year sentence is a story not just about bad business, but about psychology, how ambition, self-delusion, and social dynamics can fuel financial disaster. This narration will unpack the complex psychological mechanisms behind Billy McFarland's rise and fall, and how these forces translated into one of the most spectacular failures in modern event promotion, with ripple effects that extended well beyond the Bahamas. Understanding the psychological forces that drove McFarland illuminates how the economic mechanics of hype and social proof contribute to financial bubbles and frauds in the digital age. First, let's understand who Billy McFarland was before the Fyre Festival hype exploded. Born in 1991 in New Jersey, McFarland attended Bucknell University but dropped out to pursue entrepreneurship. He quickly gained a reputation as a determined, albeit sometimes abrasive, tech founder. Prior to Fyre, he had launched and sold a company called Magnus's, an elite card for millennials promising exclusive experiences. Magnus's had its own controversies: complaints about membership charges, undelivered perks, and poor service. Despite these red flags, McFarland managed to position himself as a rising star in tech and events. The Fyre Festival was officially announced in late 2016 and marketed extensively through social media, leveraging the influencer economy's nascent power. Instagram models, influencers, and celebrities posted attractive photos promising a luxurious retreat. Flyers depicted white sandy beaches, furnished villas, champagne, and musical performances from artists like Blink-182 and Major Lazer. Tickets ranged from $500 for a general pass to upwards of $100,000 for luxury packages that included private yachts and exclusive parties. This was not just a music festival. It was marketed as an aspirational lifestyle experience. McFarland claimed he wanted to create the most incredible music festival experience ever. But behind the scenes, operations were far from ready. Staff later recounted frantic last-minute preparations, unfulfilled vendor contracts, and severe logistical shortcomings. When attendees landed, they found disaster relief tents in place of villas, cold packaged sandwiches, and no functioning infrastructure. So what psychological drivers allowed McFarland to sell this mirage so effectively, and why did so many intelligent, well-resourced people fall for it? The answer lies in a combination of factors: overconfidence bias, confirmation bias, herd mentality fueled by social proof, and the illusion of legitimacy created by influencer marketing. Overconfidence bias, a cognitive error where people overestimate their ability to predict future events or control outcomes, was central to McFarland's mindset. His prior successes and aggressive personality reinforced his belief that he could pull off the impossible. Interviews and texts released during court proceedings reveal that he repeatedly dismissed concerns about the festival's feasibility. When suppliers and investors expressed doubts, he assured them that problems would resolve, despite mounting evidence to the contrary. This hubris blinded him to the practical realities of organizing a large-scale event, a complex logistical challenge even for seasoned professionals. Psychologists often note that entrepreneurs are particularly susceptible to overconfidence bias because their professional survival often depends on projecting certainty and charisma. But in McFarland's case, this bias escalated into reckless disregard for the financial and reputational damages his actions caused. Overconfidence led him to systematically underestimate risks and oversell the event's prospects to investors, vendors, and customers. Confirmation bias further entrenched this outlook. McFarland apparently surrounded himself mostly with people who reinforced his optimistic narrative and avoided those who challenged it. He sought out positive signals, such as enthusiastic influencer promotion and early ticket sales, to confirm his belief that the festival would succeed. This filtering out of disconfirming evidence helped sustain his delusion and maintain investor confidence even as the situation deteriorated. This fits into a broader pattern in organizational failures, where leaders become insulated by echo chambers, leading to groupthink and poor decision-making. For example, documents released during court testimony show McFarland exploiting the hype created by influencer marketing to attract investment while dismissing warnings from staff and third parties. When staff or vendors raised alarms about preparation failures, lacking emergency plans, insufficient food supplies, or inadequate accommodations, McFarland either ignored or minimized their concerns. Social proof, the psychological phenomenon where people copy the actions of others under the assumption that those actions reflect the correct behavior, was a powerful mechanism in the Fyre Festival's rise. The involvement of high-profile models such as Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, and Hailey Baldwin, all posting polished promotional content to their millions of followers, lent an aura of legitimacy. This social media-driven cult of celebrity created an illusion of trustworthiness and desirability that eclipsed traditional due diligence. Investors and customers alike were drawn to the festival not purely based on concrete facts or business fundamentals, but because they saw others, including peers and influencers whom they admired, endorsing it. This created a bandwagon effect. People bought tickets or invested based on perceived social validation rather than critical analysis. According to ticket sales data, more than 5,000 people bought passes, many shelling out thousands of dollars. The festival's $26 million in ticket sales fueled McFarland's company valuation, allowing him to raise additional capital. This illustrates a critical economic insight about modern hype economies. In digital advertising and finance, perception often drives value more than underlying reality. The ability to craft a compelling narrative, amplified by social media, can transform fiction into temporary economic reality until the underlying substance collapses. What about the financial fallout? When the festival came apart, McFarland faced multiple lawsuits from defrauded ticket holders, vendors, and investors. The FBI investigated the matter as criminal fraud. In 2018, McFarland pleaded guilty to wire fraud charges related to the festival and to separate charges involving a ticket resale scheme. In October 2018, he was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison and ordered to forfeit $26 million. From an economic perspective, this episode highlights how information asymmetry and the misuse of trust can lead to massive wealth destruction. Investors and consumers lacked access to accurate, timely information about the festival's actual readiness. The high-profile social media endorsements masked the lack of fundamental operational planning. McFarland's deception artificially inflated the value of Fyre Media and transferred wealth from consumers and suppliers to the company until the inevitable collapse. The ripple effect extended beyond the direct financial losses. The festival stranded attendees with no way home immediately, causing additional logistical and financial burdens. Some models and influencers who promoted the event faced reputational damage and legal actions. The Bahamas government also suffered harm to its tourism brand. Most broadly, the debacle raised widespread skepticism about influencer marketing and events promoted primarily through social channels. Looking at the bigger picture, Fyre Festival exemplifies how the confluence of technological, psychological, and financial trends creates fertile ground for such disasters. Digital platforms amplify influence at unprecedented speed, but lack traditional gatekeeping. Online social proof can substitute for rigorous due diligence, making markets vulnerable to hype-driven bubbles and frauds. The episode also serves as a case study of the limits of startup culture's fake it until you make it ethos. While entrepreneurs often need to project confidence and optimism to secure funding, there is a fine line between bold vision and reckless deception. McFarland's story is a cautionary tale, about how unchecked ambition, combined with psychological blind spots and uncritical social validation, can generate catastrophic outcomes, legal, financial, and human. Interestingly, McFarland's downfall was quick compared to many large corporate frauds which unfold over years or decades, like Enron or WorldCom. The speed reflected the rapid amplification and deconstruction enabled by social media and digital communication. Once the festival's failures became public, the backlash was immediate, and law enforcement intervened within months. The Fyre Festival case also changed industry standards for event promotion and influencer marketing. Platforms like Instagram introduced stricter advertising disclosure rules. Companies became more cautious about partnering with unverified events. The Federal Trade Commission increased scrutiny over celebrity endorsements, requiring clear communication about paid promotions. These responses demonstrate how market failures and frauds trigger regulatory adjustments that reshape economic ecosystems. To summarize the psychology behind the Fyre Festival disaster, Billy McFarland's overconfidence bias blinded him to the realistic business challenges involved in staging a complex music festival. His confirmation bias kept him insulated within a circle that reinforced optimism and suppressed doubts. Social proof, magnified by influencer marketing, created a smokescreen that obscured operational failures and enabled massive ticket sales and investment based on perception rather than substance. The result was a rapid inflation of value and expectations that collapsed spectacularly when the illusion unraveled, leaving long-lasting financial and reputational damage. This episode sharply illustrates the interactive dynamics of cognitive biases, social validation mechanisms, and economic incentives in creating financial bubbles and frauds in the digital age. It marks a turning point in how investors, consumers, and regulators think about hype-driven ventures promoted via social media. At the end of the day, the mechanics driving Fyre Festival were deceptively simple. Build overwhelming hype using celebrity endorsements, ignore operational realities, and rely on others' trust and optimism to drive funding and ticket sales until the illusion collapses. But this simplicity makes the disaster all the more tragic. Millions of dollars, countless hours, and human hopes gambled on a fantasy that couldn't stand the light of real scrutiny. The Fyre Festival saga remains a stark reminder that in an economy increasingly shaped by perception, trust remains a scarce and fragile resource. In the absence of transparency, even the most dazzling promises can mask unraveling fragility, and the consequences can be devastating for every stakeholder involved. If you found this story interesting, hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep making these videos. Tomorrow, we are diving into a story that is just as shocking. Martin Shkreli, the most hated CEO in America. You will not want to miss it. I will see you there.